yang berhormat Siang, Saudara Jabbar, Leslie, and our co-writer Julian, friends, in particular our discerning Malaysian taxpayers who care for the PKFZ development. Ladies and gentlemen, in fact this morning is indeed a very rare occasion where I have the opportunities to share the same platform with my Parliament colleague, Mr. Keat. As he has earlier pointed out that in the year 2009 and even the earlier part of 2010, before I make my political exit from cabinet, numerous questions, not just 3 per day, but numerous questions with a lot of brickbats have been leveled against me. Of course, I took it with the humility, and also at the same time today I'm proud to say that ultimately I managed to get myself vindicated. Vindicated not because by anybody, but by mere facts and figures. Meaning, I played my role as the Minister of Transport at that material time. My conscience is clear, and today I'm here perhaps to share some thoughts of mine with you on the subject matter after such a long lapse of time. When I say long lapse of time, I really mean it, ladies and gentlemen, because come this May, we are going to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of having our PwC, the Price Waterhouse Coopers report, released. The exact date, to be exact, that was 28th of May, 28th of May 2009. And of course, immediately after that, hardly 2 weeks later, after the release, on the 10th, to be exact, 10th of June 2009, I commissioned another independent panel to probe further. In fact, 3 panels were commissioned to probe further into the 20 identified anomalies in the report. Meaning, on one hand, we need to probe further into the anomalies identified, and on the other hand, certainly, we wouldn't want to stop at that, because we are pricked by our conscience as to how to address a problem. We identify the problems, and at the same time, it is only fair that we do something to address the problem, to rectify, or rather to rectify the situation, to re-inculcate the right type of corporate governance practices in the establishment, especially in the port authorities. That explains why the other 2 panels were set up. The other 2 panels. And all these 3 panels, in fact, were all headed by independent professionals, none from the government bench. So this is something that I need to share with you. Perhaps people tend to have a short memory, as what Hua Bing said, but to me, this is something unforgettable. And today, I'm here to thank those who have been involved in one way or another. Now, in the thankless job, I call that the genuine national service, and Hua Lau is one of them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just now, I pay special attention to each and every word said by Hua Bing. Silence is no option. I can't agree more with you, Hua Bing. Silence is no option. But certainly it takes great courage to break the silence, especially when you are in the office. You need enormous courage to break the silence, to fend off the brickbats, and also at the same time to stand by your decision, especially when your decision has been repeatedly challenged or contested by those in the corridors of power. So, ladies and gentlemen, I must admit that both Hua Bing and I, we end up to be the losers. Losers in the sense that Now, our decisions, or perhaps some of the practices that we had been trying so hard to install in the establishment, namely the PKA, the Port Klang authorities, have been overruled and overturned. And of course here, I think I'm duty bound to shed some light on one of the very key issues here. Because come May and June and July, I have numerous dates to remember. May 28, of course, I mentioned earlier. That was the very day where we have the release of Pricewaterhouse report. And come June 30th and July 31st, these are the two crucial dates. Now where we have to strain our nerves. Every year without fail, when we were in office, we have to strain our nerves as to how could we fend off the kind of pressure mounted on us to succumb us, attempting to succumb us into making the payments for the bonds. The bonds. Don't forget about the bonds. The bonds. I'm not going to name anybody here because the book itself is self-explanatory. But suffice to say that, ladies and gentlemen, when we come to the bonds, that is something bothering our mind. And until today, even after both Hua Bing and I had been dropped, or rather had been discontinued our service, to put it in a more mild form. Now, on the issue of suspending payments of bonds, both Hua Bing and I might be deemed recalcitrant, or worse still, blamed for being instrumental in eroding the credibility of our bond market in the eyes of international investors. Nonetheless, we remain steadfast, as we were mindful that the government should only pay the quantum that the court rules as rightfully due once the civil suits have been successfully disposed. More so, ladies and gentlemen, to my understanding, and also certainly after having consulted with our lawyers, I came to the conclusion that the bond has never been guaranteed by the government in any way or in any form. And to answer questions posed by Wadi Keat, he asked me about my view on CKC, Tan Sri Chan Kong Choi's letters of support or letters of guarantee. And I make it clear again, loud and clear again, as what I said in Parliament, within Parliament and outside Parliament, I maintain my stand. And this is my stand that the three controversial letters, in fact, to me, were deemed at most letters of comfort. I'm not trying to defend anybody here, and neither would I want to claim ignorance to the element of sub judice. But certainly, I need to caution here, ladies and gentlemen, had we interpreted the three letters as letters of guarantees by the government, then that would make the authorities, that would give the authorities every reason, every justification to justify why they should pay, they should make payment for the bonds. This is a catch, and I need to say it here, because I wouldn't want to see that for political reasons or what have you. Now, some of the arguments, somehow or other, have been unfortunately distorted. As such, ladies and gentlemen, any move to pay according to the schedule appended to the contractor under dispute is tantamount to jumping the gun. In this respect, we were all guided. I must say that, and I believe so. I believe that both Hua Bing and I were guided by our conscience and our consciousness of being the custodians of the public money, the public funds, though we were later overruled by our respective political bosses. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to date, a total of 3.039 billion, I repeat, 3.039 billion ringgit was estimated to have been paid to service the loan for the bonds that had been brought to question. Come 30th of June this year, an estimate of 733 1.37 million ringgit is again due to the two special purpose vehicles, or the SPVs, representing the bondholders for the purchase of land and development work done by the PKFZ turnkey contractor that is still very much embroiled in the multiple civil suits instituted by PKA for alleged fraud, unconscionable conduct, and overcharging. Of course, all this, I presume, you might have read it in the book. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to have rocket science knowledge to understand that if you think someone has overcharged for something he has sold to you, if you think that someone has overcharged for something he has sold to you, or for a service rendered, you would certainly immediately stop payment until the dispute is settled. It does not make any sense at all for you to continue paying the vendor, since the court or the arbiter may later argue that the fact that you paid him after you discovered there is element of fraud would certainly show that you give consent to it. I think this is quite logical. This is common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, just now I mentioned about the types of questions that I have to answer. Not just questions from Keat, but also questions from all over, and including questions from my colleagues within the cabinet before the release of the PWC, the Pricewaterhouse report. I had to grapple with questions fired by my cabinet colleagues for 3 rounds, easily 3 rounds. I could remember that very well. 3 rounds. Why 3 rounds? Because in 3 consecutive weeks, at the weekly meeting, I was made to answer such questions. And of course, quite a fair bit of fireworks were involved in. But ladies and gentlemen, we call a spade a spade. And I would welcome questions, sensible questions be asked. And before, I still could remember, ladies and gentlemen, before and during the independent probe that I commissioned, unkind brickbats laced with prejudged and prejudicial sentiments had been lavishly hurled at me, especially in the name of upholding justice and transparency. Of course, Keat did mention that 3 questions were fired daily while I was in the midst of uncovering more facts and figures. I was then in the midst of uncovering more facts and figures. But of course, at the same time, I need to fend off the questions fired at me. But surprisingly, of course, today I have the opportunity here to ask Keat in front of everybody. Until today, I'm still wondering why at that point of time, questions seem to be more focused on the minister, that is me, OTK, rather than the real culprits who were then still well and kicking and who are still at large. You know what I mean? And until today, I'm still harboring that kind of skeptical views. Why then? Is it because of my position, both as the minister as well as the president of the particular party? I mean, that is the question I would like to ask, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I mean, when I say this, I have no ill feeling whatsoever. Just a point of interest. Because sometimes, of course, you can't stop a person from harboring such curiosity, right? Ladies and gentlemen, after such uncovering effort has come to the conclusion with the release of the Pricewaterhouse report, and when many reforms are being progressively reversed and dismantled, I have reasons to lament that our custodians of justice within and outside the parliament are, however, deafening silent. I would expect more questions to be asked at this juncture, more questions to be directed, not just at PKA, of course not bobbing anymore, the present board, as well as the minister, as well as the government of the day. No doubt today I'm still attached to the ruling party, but I would love to see that questions to be asked And I must share with you, ladies and gentlemen, as a backbencher now, yeah, BN backbencher in the House. Now, I did not forget my duty and my commitment to the cause. And I have been raising questions pertinent to PKFZ time and again, whenever I have the opportunities. Unfortunately, quite a number of my questions were thrown out on the ground of sub judice. Of course, occasionally, questions asked by me were given very brief answers that are less pertinent to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes, now, as a human being, of course, we have human weaknesses. Me too, I'm of no exception. And of course, sometimes, I've been asking myself, is it that the whistleblowers deserve to be crucified, while the real perpetrators, the culprits, they could be spared, or even allowed to get off hook? This is a kind of sentiment sometimes bothering me. And perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, I would wish to see that all our discerning Malaysians who are here today, we are here not just to manifest, not just to witness a book launch, but rather we are here to manifest our commitment to the cause, our commitment to what? To the culture, inculcation of transparency and accountability, especially within the establishment. Ladies and gentlemen, when I say that I wish to see crooks or culprits be punished, of course, I'm not suggesting that justice is merely about retribution, of seeing the culprits being put behind the bars. That is not enough. Don't forget that we have yet to recover the hefty sum of money that had been drawn, that had been siphoned out, that had been overcharged in one way or another. And at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, of course, not to forget that the main aim, the main purpose, I presume, Wabing might have the same thought as well. The main purpose of producing this book, the main purpose for me, sometimes to brag, not to say to brag about it, but to revisit the issue proper, is to remind our fellow Malaysians that let us do whatever we can to ensure that there is no repetition whatsoever of this magnitude in times to come. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, in the past 3 years, I still remember, in the past 3 years, now this issue, PKFZ, on one hand, it was deemed sensitive. It is still deemed sensitive. And on the other hand, it is totally oblivious. Oblivious in the mainstream media. And I'm happy today, our fellow Malaysians are still here to render your support. Not just to Kwame, but to the cause. And I wish to see that, ladies and gentlemen, now end of the day, now we need to do more. We need to do more in order to firstly to recover the money, and secondly we need to make sure that this project would ultimately be turned around. This is something that is lacking, unfortunately. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to what I said earlier, now there have been quite a number of corporate practices which are deemed proper and appropriate, such as practicing whistleblowing policy, in arresting malpractices, not just in PKFZ, but in all the port authorities, installing transparency in reporting the PKFZ facts and figures, especially on the occupancy rate and rental revenues, the appointment of independent directors who constitute 1/3 of the board, as well as entering into the integrity pact. All this, I remember, Paul, you have a hand in it, right? Right? And all this, unfortunately, have been dismantled progressively, in stages, deliberately, following the change of guards in MOT in 2010, June 2010, and later on, PKA. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I presume we have just read the newspapers, we have just read the news on the news portals, the latest withdrawal of complaints to the respective professional bodies against professionals who work hand in glove with PKA and the turnkey contractor. has further revealed such a disappointing scenario. Ministry concern remains as silent as ever, while the opposition on the other side of the divide too, they might have the issue out of their rudders for the moment, as this, I do understand as a politician, this would provide them with good fodder crop for partisan publicity come the next general election. But please, do not view this, do not take this as something seasonal. We need to pursue the case at all times, not just depends on, not just in accordance with the seasonal needs. I think this is something I need to stress this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, now that the whistleblowers, there are two here, have been given a boot, but the multi-billion ringgit scandal is far from being over. Though it is now totally oblivious in the mainstream media, as what I said earlier. As the immediate past Minister of Transport, ladies and gentlemen, of course you know that I have been responsible for commissioning the thorough and independent probe into the PKFZ scandal, and now that I'm hopeful that the hard work put in by the ad hoc committee, or the independent panel that I set up on June the 10th, 2009. Now, they have put in a lot of effort. They have produced 7 big volumes of findings pertinent to the wrongdoings, the anomalies identified by the Pricewaterhouse report. They have done all this, but unfortunately, under the confidential cover, of course, I had no choice but to hand over all these 7 big volumes of reports now to the investigators and the prosecutors. Unfortunately, after 3 long years, I'm still waiting. You two are still waiting. We all are waiting. But certainly, not everybody has the privilege of access to such findings. But suffice to say that, ladies and gentlemen, now, it is our right not just to yearn for the release of the report, or rather the findings, but also at the same time, we want to know the answer. The answer, and the answer lies in the prosecutors as well as the investigators. And I am getting less and less patient whenever I'm told that the investigation, the probe is still in progress. And this is still open-ended, and certainly people like you and I would love to see that now this would be concluded in due course. So last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, now if I may take this opportunity just to pinpoint one particular, I would say, imperfection. I use the word imperfection because when I say mistake, of course, people may rise to object. That is the figures. Of course, we all here would agree that we want transparency. We can never spare the perpetrators, especially those involved in such a scandal. But to say that PKFZ scandal is a 12.5 billion ringgit scandal, I beg to have my reservation. Reason being, now this 12.5 billion ringgit, in fact, this was quoted, this was cited from the position review. The position review. I'm not trying to advertise here, but this is the book released by Pricewaterhouse, right? 12.5 billion ringgit. Actually, this was cited from the book. But mind you, 12.5 billion ringgit is a mere postulated figure by the year 2051. 2051. Not that under the present administration, under the present minister, I'm not trying to defend him, but suffice to say that this is incorrect if you were to say that 12.5 billion has now been incurred, has now been accrued. I think that is far from the real facts. 2051, by the year 2051, now had the authorities concerned, the PKA failed to reschedule the terms and conditions of the loans owing to MOF, and if they fail to do anything to arrest the ballooning, the snowballing effect of off the outstanding debts, then that 12.5 billion would come through. So ladies and gentlemen, I must thank you for your patience, and I must apologize that I took the opportunity now to shed some further light now on the issue. And of course, people have been asking me in the past few days, when are you going to produce a book? And I did promise Hua Bing before that I would certainly allow him now to fire the first salvo. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, I managed to find time now to do now what is necessary, especially when I'm so tempted to write my piece as well. And so far, for your information, I did do it occasionally in Chinese language in my weekly column. But certainly, it's time for me to consider seriously writing it in totality in English. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.